I'm here, disorganized as usual. So something sad to start with. A friend of mine's daughter who suffered from anorexia, who's probably in her late 20s, the daughter, not the friend, she died on Sunday. And I just can't imagine, or I can try and imagine what her mother's going through, but I can't really imagine it. I don't have kids, for one, so that probably makes it hard to know what it's like to be a mum. But I have lost people, and I don't know, I just feel like it's unrecoverable. And it's a really harsh reminder for all of us that, like, I get the reminder often enough, but it keeps on coming, that eating disorders do kill. And you can think that you're doing okay, and you could not be doing okay. Okay, so Britt says, can you eat too much or unhealthy in recovery? No. And there's a blog on my site, literally, even if you just, anything like that, there's so many blogs on my website about just that question. It's actually very important to eat unhealthy. You can eat too little and you can eat too healthy in recovery. And if you eat too healthy in recovery, you won't rewire shit. And if you don't rewire anything, you won't fully recover. And you'll just completely waste all your time and effort. So you should actually, if anything, be very afraid of eating too healthily in recovery, because you won't recover. Mike says, any advice on overcoming problems with spending money? Yeah, so I wrote about this a lot in my book. It's something that I had a huge issue with, is spending money. And so I put that, not everybody has that behavior, but a fair amount of us do. And I put that under what I call the scarcity mindset. So when your brain thinks that food is scarce because you've been restricting, I'm talking your prehistoric brain here, brainstem area. Brain thinks that food is scarce, or at least a part of your brain does. Then the brain acts as if resources in general are scarce, and the brain goes into apocalyptic mode, which is kind of like, yeah, the resources are scarce, hostile environment. And if you think about it, from your brain's point of view, the smarter thing to do, if you were in a hostile environment where resources were scarce, the smart thing to do would be to not spend any money. And so I used to have huge anxiety about spending money. And I'm not talking a lot of money. I'm talking about 50 pence. I couldn't buy toilet roll. I used to steal toilet roll from my university toilets, taken back to my flat. It's kind of sad, isn't it? Very sad. And it wasn't I didn't have the money. I just had such anxiety about spending any sort of money. So you have to rewire that just in the same way you've got to rewire everything else. It's not going to fix itself necessarily, although it will probably over time, as you recover gradually, get less of an anxiety-provoking thing. But you need to rewire it, and you rewire it the same way you rewire anything else. You force yourself to do that thing that your brain doesn't want you to do. And you have to force yourself to not be as tight with money. You really do. Don't allow your brain to make excuses. It's important because, again, the whole point of recovery and everything is to be happy and to be free and to be able to live our lives to the best of our abilities. And if you have an inability to spend money, then, yeah, you're not going to be that happy. I'm not saying that money makes you happy, but the ability to actually just buy yourself the things that you need, that your body needs, is important for your happiness. Another name I pronounce, OMS. Hi, Tabitha. I'm in recovery, but I'm counting calories to reach a certain amount. I know it's not enough, but if I don't count, I don't eat enough. Want to store? I mean, honestly, it's just such bullshit. You're allowing yourself to believe your own bollocks. And step one of being able to recover from an eating disorder is stop believing your own bollocks, because that's just shit. You don't count calories to make sure that you eat enough. You count calories to make sure you don't eat too much. And I'll tell you why. Because if it was true that you were counting calories just to make sure that you ate enough, you wouldn't have to count, because all you do, if you had any doubt in your mind, have I eaten enough today? Guess what you do? You pick up some cheese and you put it in your mouth, and you keep doing that until there was no doubt in your mind that you'd eaten enough calories. You don't have to count calories to know that you've eaten enough. But what you're doing is you're counting calories to make sure that you don't eat too much. And the first thing that you need to do is at least be honest about that with yourself. This is nothing to do with you making sure that you eat enough, and everything to do that you don't go over the amount that you've allowed yourself to eat. And so that is your fear of weight gain coming out there. You have got to force yourself to stop counting calories, and you've got to force yourself to eat without restriction and eat as if you're actually in recovery. And that means a heck of a lot of food. And I promise you that if you're eating recovery amounts of food, there is no doubt in your mind whether you ate enough to gain weight or not. It really is that simple. So stop bullshitting yourself. And when you stop doing that, when you actually start eating such a large amount of food, your brain will give up counting calories, because what's the fucking point? The reason that your brain counts calories right now is because calories are relevant, because they actually mean something, because you are sort of gearing your whole food intake around them. Once you stop gearing your whole food intake around them, they become irrelevant, and therefore the brain no longer needs to count them. And that's how you teach your brain to stop wanting to count calories, is you need to make calories irrelevant. At the moment, they're still relevant and your brain still has a use for them. And so actually your brain's just doing its job, because you are reinforcing it every day. When you count calories and you change your behaviors and you gear your food around how many calories you've eaten, you are reinforcing to your brain that calories are an important thing that you need to pay attention to. You have to rewire that by not paying attention to them, not counting them, and forcing yourself to do what's really scary, which is to just eat and not know how much you're eating, and just shove it in your face and keep going. That's scary. That's recovery. Recovery is not about doing what feels safe. Recovery is about doing what feels scary and teaching your brain that what feels scary is actually not going to hurt you. Hope that helps. How can you actually follow through with recovery and not only empty words? That's just up to you, Laura. Honestly, isn't it? It's like, this can be the same about everything. We can just use words and say, I want to do this and I want to do that, and then not do it. The main problem when you have an eating disorder, it's the fear. You may logically, this part of your brain, know I want to recover from my eating disorder, but brainstem area, which controls the fear and all that stuff, is just sort of freaking out. And so recovery is about fear response management. That's what recovery is about. Recovery is really about how well you can be afraid of something and do it anyway. And so when people do that, when people talk a lot and use a lot of words and talk as if they're in recovery, but they're not actually following through with their actions, it's not that they don't want to recover, and it's not a lot of the time that they're purposefully trying to deceive. It's just that they're scared, and overcoming fear is hard, and it's hard for a reason. It's hard by design. Once our brain has a fear of something, it's designed to feel very strong and stop us doing that thing that the brain thinks is a threat to us. And so that's why recovery is about fear response management. It's understanding my brain feels very strongly that I shouldn't gain weight, even if logical brain thinks that you should gain weight. Brainstem area is afraid of gaining weight. Brainstem area feels very strongly that I shouldn't gain weight. And so the brainstem area is going to kick up a bit of a fuss if I do anything that could potentially lead to weight gain, eat more food, exercise less, stuff like that. And that is why on a day-to-day basis, you don't follow through with those things. It's not because you don't want to, it's because you're afraid. So what you need to focus on is managing that fear response and being able to do what you know that you need to do and be afraid at the same time, because fear response isn't going anywhere for a while. If you can do that, then that's when those words actually start to become actions. Okay, I'm sorry this is a short one. I have to go and talk to somebody. Bye.